love you, Tom!
Hi, my name is Tom Sitter, 93 years old, and still breathing. Now, during World War II, I found myself in France. Now, the Battle of the Bulge had started in December of that year and continued through January. When we got there, it was pretty much over, but I was in a medical battalion, and we had to clean up pretty much. We carried bodies and parts of bodies and prisoners to station hospitals and to the aid centers. Now, over there, we ran into our arch enemies, the 9th Armored Division. These guys were all tankers, and they were mean. And we had both trained in Kansas during near Fort Riley during World War II. And we in the cavalry, I was in the cavalry at the time. We had these great uniform boots and breeches, and they really turned a lot of heads, and we knew it. We were pretty cocky. Anyway, we'd go into town, and when the tankers would be there, and oh, by the way, in 42, they still had horse cavalry down in Fort Riley, in addition to the mechanized cavalry. So when we go into town, the tankers would be in these bars, we'd come walking in, and they'd say, "I smell horse shit. The 29th must be here." And we gave as good as we got. And we'd say, tankers. Isn't that what happens to a guy when he gives up in a fight? So as a result, there were a lot of fights going on. And we would instigate fights. But we'd sing a cavalry song, bear with me. We'd say, the cavalry, with dirt behind their ears. The cavalry, they drink up all the beers. The infantry and tankers and the Corps of Engineers, they couldn't whip the cavalry in 100,000 years. Well, that created that created a lot of fights too. Anyways, when we got over to Europe, we ran into the 9th Armored Division. I'll tell you how. When we first landed, the 20th Armored Division, there were 12,000 men, and tanks and armored cars and jeeps and everything else. The first thing they did when we landed in France was to break us up into segments, and they put us with the 1st, the 3rd, and the 9th Army. So we were part of the 9th Army, and up near the Rhine, we were next to the British and Canadian troops. And during that time, we did ambulance duties and moved wounded and dead. But we noticed when we got up to close to the Rhine, our hearts sank. We knew, first of all, the Germans, when they retreated after the battle, they blew up bridges all the way. And we knew that when we got to the Rhine, we saw that immense body of water. We knew our hearts sank. We knew we were going to have to cross it, probably in rubber rafts or tiny boats. So we didn't look forward to that. And my rosary got a pretty good workout during that time. Anyway, finally, this was by now it was February of 1945, and trying to think of the right sequence here now. Oh, anyway, while we were up with the British 2nd, we were near, like I say, near the Rhine. Now the Rhine River started as a trickle in the Swiss Alps, and when it goes northeasterly, flowing into the North Sea, it becomes a huge river, hundreds of yards across. And we just were frightened at the thought of crossing that. But anyways, by early March, we had good news. Someone had captured a bridge at Remagen. It was a railway trestle bridge, and it was captured by our old arch enemies, the 9th Armored Division. Great guys. So anyway, we finally, we reunited the 20th Armored Division, finally went to the point where we were going to cross. Now, the 9th Armored Division had fought terribly hard to win that. The Germans tried to blow up the trestle bridge, and what happened is some of the charges, for some reason, God only knows, that didn't go off. So the 9th Armored had to go into that trestle, crawl under fire, and to cut wires, remove charges that didn't detonate. At any moment, they thought the thing would go up into their face. And then on top of it, the bridge now was intact, but it was tilted and very shaky. You couldn't get a vehicle across there. So the 9th Armored dismounted, had crawled under fire, went across that bridge one at a time, under fire, and they established a bridgehead on the other side of the river. And they held that bridgehead, those lucky so-and-sos, held that bridge long enough for pontoon bridges to be built where we were. Well, the 20th Armored Division finally was united, and we were going to cross at that point. Now, when we got in our ambulance, we started off a pontoon, a very flimsy pontoon bridge. The big bridges, sturdy ones, were for tanks and trucks. But we got in this, as we got onto this pontoon, I could tell it was shaking. We were swaying from side to side and dipping and everything else, and the water was choppy, and the water was black, and it was cold. It was in March. And we knew that if we made one mistake, that ambulance was going to go into the water with us in it, and in doing so, we're going to wreck that pontoon bridge, which means that if we survived the water floating downstream, our own troops would have been shooting at us, and who were waiting to cross the bridge, of course. Well, we finally got across the bridge. We went over on the other side of the bridge. We united, and the 20th Armored Division was attached to the 7th Army, and we swept through Germany. We went through down along Mannheim and Augsburg and south and east, and finally got to Dachau, and that's another story I won't go into it. We got to Munich, and finally we crossed the river and got into Bavaria. And as we headed towards the Austrian border, we almost reached it on May 7th, 1945. And the war ended. Now, yesterday was May 7th, 1945. And I mean, talk about 72 years. You know, some of your grandparents weren't even alive at that time. But anyways, we got across. And to this day, I'm here telling that story because I wouldn't be here had it not been for those incredible bravery of those glorious bastards, the 9th Armored Division.
Let's hear it for Tom Sinner. So I'm going to give the judges a little moment to decide and get their numbers in, and I have a few more little